Amira woke up with a bright smile, feeling that a good day was ahead. The weather was perfect, clear skies and a gentle breeze. She looked forward to a short morning at school before her junior high class's field trip to the African American Museum. Afterward, she planned to spend a peaceful afternoon with her loving grandmother, Lucille, until her mother finished her long day at work. Since her father's passing a few years earlier, and with her mother working two demanding jobs, Amira had been living with her grandmother, finding comfort in the familiar and supportive surroundings of her school, family, and friends. The last few years have been difficult for Amira, especially after her father's death and her mother's increased work hours. However, today she feels optimistic, enhanced by the comforting morning atmosphere. The aroma of her grandmother's coffee mixed with the light scent of rosewater lotion. As she descended the stairs, she heard Grandma Lucille exclaiming about someone's broken promises while watching the morning news, a ritual she never misses before her stories begin. Despite the often depressing news, Lucille usually remains unfazed, but the new president's policies have stirred old anxieties, causing her to worry about her family's future and the regression she perceives in society. Lucille, in her mid-80s, grappled with a sense of societal regression. As Amira entered the living room, Lucille masked her worries with a warm smile, determined to protect her granddaughter from the world's negativity. Amira, grabbing an apple, cheerfully greeted her grandmother, advising her not to let the news spoil her day. Lucille waved dismissively, claiming she'd seen worse leaders, but inwardly she felt this leader evoked memories of her difficult childhood. She wished Amira a good day and encouraged her to learn something new. Filled with excitement, Amira eagerly walked to the corner and waited for the school bus with her classmates and her best friend, stepping into the crisp morning air while leaving Lucille to her worrisome thoughts. As usual, Amira's timing was perfect. The school bus arrived just as she reached the corner. She boarded the bus and greeted Melvin, the friendly, light caramel-complexioned driver with orange-brown hair. Although Melvin wasn't a talkative man, he always gave a polite smile and a sincere greeting. He had been her school bus driver for 2 years now. Amira then walked to the back to sit with her best friend Melinda, and after a 30-minute ride, they arrived at school. The girls entered MLK High School and made their way down the hallway to their first class, settling into their usual seats beside their friends, Eugenia and Arifa, who were already there. With 5 minutes before the bell, they skipped the typical greetings and jumped straight into serious topics. At least serious for them, like Beyoncé's new song and the week's hottest young R&B artist. They were so absorbed in their conversation that they didn't even notice Mrs. Young entering the classroom. Today, the students felt a bit more cheerful because after attendance was taken and the usual reminders about behaving their best, they were heading out of the classroom for a field trip to the African American Museum. The excitement among them stemmed more from the chance to leave the school grounds for most of the day than from the trip itself. Most of these young students, who were African American, had been born and raised in this small, predominantly African American city and had visited the museum during elementary and middle school, as well as with their families, so they were familiar with the history. However, Mrs. Young, a teacher with many years of experience, saw the trip differently this year. She wished the students truly understood the kinds of challenges that lay ahead. While most of them were somewhat aware of how racist the newly elected government was, she knew that many still didn't grasp just how deeply the issue ran. With attendance complete and permission slips verified, Mrs. Young stood before the class, ready to impart some wisdom. As we embark on our museum visit, remember this. Go beyond mere observation. Immerse yourselves in the historical context. Always reject the uninspired expectations of others, as this is essential to avoid self-doubt and mental distress. Too often, Black folks conform without questioning, blindly following those who disregard their well-being, only to find themselves hardened by their own lack of critical thought. She then walked in front of Amira's desk, smiled at her, and handed a paper to Amira, asking her to stand and read it to the class. Mrs. Young did a great job of not showing favoritism among her students, but Amira was certainly one of her favorites. She was smart and inquisitive, especially about Black history, always asking questions that many students or adults might hesitate to voice. Amira liked most of her teachers, but Mrs. Young was her favorite teacher. Of course, it also was a plus that history was one of her favorite subjects as well. She stood up from her desk and gave her infamous $1,000,000 smile and began to read from the paper. Humans first evolved in Africa, and much of human evolution occurred on that continent. The fossils of early humans who lived between 6 and 2 million years ago come entirely from Africa. Early humans first migrated out of Africa into Asia, probably between 2 million and 1.8 million years ago. They entered Europe somewhat later, between 1.5 million and 1 million years. Species of modern humans populated many parts of the world much later. For instance, people first came to Australia probably within the past 60,000 years, and to the Americas within the past 30,000 years or so. The beginnings of agriculture and the rise of the first civilizations occurred within the past 12,000 years. After completing her reading of the scientific paper from the Smithsonian Institution, she smiled and remarked, "So that makes us the original people." Mrs. Young looked at her and smiled, then turned to the entire classroom with a warm yet serious expression, saying, "I want each and every one of you to remember what Amira just read and, most importantly, her response afterward.